oh, 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 oh. Hello everybody and hi, my name is Kieran and welcome back to Mental Health Mondays. I stopped making them for a little bit there because, you know, the burnout break. But also I just didn't really feel like I had anything to say. Not that there's nothing that I could talk about, but I just didn't feel like anything really worth sharing going on. You know what I mean? There just wasn't really anything interesting to talk about or something that I really felt on fire, something in my heart to talk about, you know? But that's changed. But first, to address the obvious, I've rearranged the office. I've been thinking for a long time how I could make a cleaner background for my videos, and this I'm still gonna, there's like all that kind of clutter over there. And I don't know how I feel about the mirror and that, but I think it looks a lot better actually. And there's so many more room for activities. I could feasibly, if I wanted to, I could set up like a table, a small table right in here, and I could do little craft videos if I wanted to. My options have been opened, which is pretty cool. Here's a video of the new place. Ka-chow! As you can see, I've got the drums off to the side, way more accessible than they used to be. I'm now facing the window, which is so much better for just being relaxed and productive and having fresh air hit me in the face. Piano off to the side. And it's really just opened everything up a lot more. All of my instruments are a lot easier to access. I've cleaned up and decluttered a huge mess that used to be in that corner. I don't know if I ever really showed that in a video. If you recall, it used to be my keyboard was up against the wall and my drum kit was on the other side of it, and I rarely used either of them because it was so cumbersome to make my way through it all. And I really got convinced because I've started practicing the drums more, and to get out, I had to crawl underneath the framework, and I realized that I since I wanted to do more drumming, I needed to make some changes. And now it's like it's easier to get to my computer if I need to make some upgrades or adjustments. I can actually sit at the piano super casually. I can reach all of my instruments super easy. I need to vacuum because the floor is filthy. That desk has been in the same place for about 9 years. But now it's super easy to just sit down, play some drums, or if I want to tittle on the keys a little bit, I can go for it. And it just looks even aesthetically more pleasing. I don't credit myself as an interior designer type. I'm very much function over fashion, but it looks so functional, and that makes it feel fashionable to me. And I have the ukuleles on the sides of my window, which is, I don't know, it's a cute little touch because it's function and fashion. It's aesthetically pleasing, and I can go and grab them if I want. It's such a miraculous time. I really want to commit myself to not letting the other half of this desk just become clutter because there's so much room and I get so claustrophobic. It's really fun, and this is the first video that I'm recording in my new setup. So let me know what you think. I'm immediately right now, I think this just looks so much better. It's so much more clean and less cluttered. I'm professional. But this is Mental Health Mondays. This isn't what's the HGTV? This ain't no home reno show. We're here to talk about the ugly bits in my gray matter. And today I actually do have something that I'm really excited about. It's something that I've wanted to know for quite a long time, and knowing it now, it just makes me feel so much better. I've been going through, over the last month or so, I've been getting some assessments done, 2 hours straight each time of just talking about myself, which I didn't hate it. It was exhausting. In most days I would come home afterwards completely blacked out because it's a lot of talking, and it's a lot of recollecting and discussing and socializing in a way. And I was being tested for, actually, in the video that came out yesterday, the honey cake, I mentioned that I was getting some testing done. This is what I was talking about. So basically, I was getting an official assessment and diagnosis. I've wanted it for a long time, and I've finally done it. Drum roll, please. Ting ting ping ting ting ping ting ping ting ting ping ding. That was a sad drum roll, my guy. Autism. I'm a schism with the tism. After 6 hours spread over 3 appointments, 2 hours each of just intensive questioning, and I think I took about a dozen different surveys and stuff. She was testing me for a whole bunch of different things in case I needed a differential diagnosis. And what it came to is that I have high functioning autism. And knowing that is so nice because there are so many things, and every day I'm seeing new things or realizing new things about myself, and I'm just suddenly realizing like, oh, I'm not like a weirdo. I just am this way because my brain is made that way. Let me go to everyone's favorite dictionary, Google. In case anyone is unaware about what autism is. Autism. Noun. A developmental disorder of variable severity that is characterized by difficulty in social interaction and communication and by restricted or repetitive patterns of thought and behavior. So that's a very simple definition of autism. It's a very complex thing. And I got it. What is an autism person like? I'm autistic, but I know grammar. This goes into a bit greater detail. Autistic people may act in a different way to other people, find it hard to understand how other people think or feel, find things like bright lights or loud noises overwhelming, stressful, or uncomfortable, get anxious or upset about unfamiliar situations and social events, take longer to understand information. Boy howdy, howdy. Autism can look like anything. As it says, it's a very variable disability. And I've heard some people talking, because it's a spectrum, right? There's high functioning, me, and then low functioning, others. And I've heard some people saying that they don't really agree with the spectrum because it's more of a circle with different strengths going off of it. Some people may have high support needs with sensory stimulation. They might need high support needs like sunglasses and headphones to manage loud noises and bright lights, but they may actually have low support needs when it comes to social interactions. I don't know where I would fit on that chart. This is still a relatively new thing about me that I know for sure, so now I can actually start looking into it more discernibly. But it's so cool to know that now. And everything I've said about OCD, spit it out of your mouth, you know? Not happening anymore. I was being treated for OCD for not a full year, but a good while, the better part of a year. And through this assessment, what we discovered is that what we've been attributing to OCD is actually better explained by autism. So intrusive thoughts, repetitive thoughts and phrases, and a need for structure and routine and stuff like that. It's you boy. And it is fascinating because every day, like I said, I'm realizing new things about me. Like with my difficulties, to talk about my history and retail experience. Retail, specifically the salesman half of my job. It was a small store, so we did literally all the jobs all the time. Interacting with customers was super stressful and draining on me because, for one, people got weirdly angry over weirdly stupid things. I never really understood it, but they were very upset a lot of the time. And I remember it felt a lot of the time like I wasn't good enough for the job. It felt like it was an assessment on me, and that I wasn't strong enough to handle a job that revolves around being social and talking to people all the time. I always thought that I was weak because of that, because I wasn't able to handle it with any grace. I don't think I would call what I was doing handling it at all. I don't know if I've talked about retail, but basically for my 8 or 4 hour shifts, I would be either building up to a panic attack, having a panic attack, or coming down from a panic attack. My heart rate was up every time there was a customer in the store. It was just truly awful. But it's interesting to know now that it's not a reflection of my worth as a person. I'm not lesser because of that. It was just that that's a job that doesn't work for people whose brains work like mine does. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. It's not that I was too weak to handle that job. It's just that my brain was not designed to deal with those situations. You know, customer service and retail, I'm physically not designed to cope with that. It's very validating and vindicating to know that my brain is just designed a certain way. It's not that I'm weak, and it's not that I'm defeated by those things that I just couldn't do. It's just that I was never meant to be able to do those things in the first place. When God slammed this slosh in my nog, it was not with the intention that I would ever be able to handle social intensive jobs, jobs like retail, customer service, anything to do with the general public. And then because I have autism, there are certain jobs that I am designed to cope with better than neurotypical people. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong or better about either of them. It's just that we all have strengths and weaknesses, and it's just a matter of being where your strengths are and not picking a losing fight right out the gate. And it's also been nice because I knew I was never going to work retail again, but there was always an air of shame to that for me because it felt like I was giving up and I was giving in to my fears. And because I'd always just chalked it up to plain social anxiety, which is definitely still a thing, it felt like I kept pushing myself as hard as I could and I never got more comfortable or more capable in social environments. And that's just because that's not what my brain is made for. I wasn't failing to meet my full potential. I was just trying to push a mountain instead of just walk around it. It's a very good feeling to have confirmed something that I suspected for a long time and to suddenly be able to understand why I am the way that I am. It's such a relief. It's a really wonderful feeling. And please no, if I ever did have to go into a job where some degree of interaction with the public would be expected, I have a doctor's note to say, sure, but just so you know, I really shouldn't. I'll stock shelves till the cows come home. That was my favorite part in retail, is just stocking shelves, no customers. I could just focus on organizing and, getting everything to fit right and sort of play Tetris in a way. That was the good stuff. That's what I enjoyed. But then a customer would come up and tap me on the shoulder. He's like, hey, I'm really sorry to bother you. You're such a hard worker, and I recognize that. This is my baby. Could you find my baby something to chew on that won't poison them? And then I have to punt their child across the room. It's really exhausting, It's an exaggeration. I did not punt any children. I would have loved to punt a lot of the mothers of those children, but the children are fine. I did not kill the children. Maybe once, but it's not my fault. I was drunk. I have my folder here of all of my therapy sheets, and I would like to, if you're all right with it, read an excerpt of my official psychological assessment report. I'm not going to read you everything. It is 11 pages, but I would like to share the parts specifically about the TISM. So yeah, ADHD, got her. Big sad and big scared. Huh. Your boy been rocking them for some time. And I was looked at for OCD stuff, and we think it's better explained as just being autism. And also for personality disorders, I don't think I worked for any of them. I had a lot of avoidant symptoms, but not a lot of dependent. So that just means I don't like to be around people. If you see me on the street, and that's so egotistical to say, because I'm not even 1,000 subscribers. If for some reason you see me on the street and you want to say hi, do it. Do it with the understanding that if you don't make it awkward, I will, just because who I am as a person. But just know that I will always remember it, and it'll be the highlight of my day, almost certainly. Give a hi, hello, goodbye. Anything more than that, and you will be made very uncomfortable by my existence. And also, actually, just one thing that I realized just before recording, I have my noise-canceling earbuds in. I do that because today's been a bit difficult, and it's really helpful for me to calm down and focus by blocking out a lot of the ambient noises around, which is a common thing for people with autism, not being able to process a lot of the noises and sounds that they're hearing. So it's just a neat little thing, and I can do this because that's just what you do to compensate as an autistic person. I don't know. I'm learning a lot, and it's making me happy. Itchy eye. So let's read the official report. Autism spectrum disorder. A semi-structured interview using DSM-5 criteria was administered with Kieran, that's me, to assess for autism spectrum disorder. He has also provided substantial information from a diary kept on his phone that he shared during the assessment. That I had a folder in the Notes app on my phone called Autism Evidence, just things that I thought were maybe indicative of, being a symptom of autism. So over like a good few months, I wrote it all down. Just if I noticed like, oh, that's a thing that could be autism, I would just write it down real quick and sort of give some context for it. That was the last session we had, was just 2 straight hours from top to bottom of me going through that folder. And she was really ecstatic about it. It was everything that she was going to want to know about me, but without having to go through robotic questions and probe me for answers. So she was really, really happy about it. A little something if you're looking at an assessment, write a diary down. The worst case is you're wrong, and then it's actually evidence to go towards a different thing. Either way, you get to learn more about yourself and how to work with yourself. Regarding social emotional interaction skills, Kieran reported that his only strategy to make friends is to forcibly insert himself into someone's life and wait for them to include him. If the other person continues reaching out to him, this is how he gauges relational success. If he is no longer in proximity of other individuals on a regular basis, he does not know how to continue the friendship. Maintaining relationships has always been really, really difficult for me. And now I kind of know why. I'm not stupid. I'm just autistic. So those kinds of skills that are maybe more natural to other people, they take a lot of discerned effort on my part. And also object permanence, I've heard, is a difficulty with autistic people. It's the idea that if someone's not regularly in my life, then I'll forget about them. And that's 100% true. That holds true for me. I think that's part of why maintaining relationships is difficult for me, because if someone's not regularly trying to interact with me, or if someone's not, in class every day or at work and I see them regularly, then I will more often than not just forget they even exist. So I'll work on that. He attributes having a specific goal in mind and being with classmates daily to his success in having girlfriends in high school. I am a playa, get on my level. Kieran reported that if he enters a relationship with the intentions of romance, he's more capable in those social interactions than with friends because there's something he's working towards. Getting her to like me. If I can do that, then that's I have a goal. And I think maintaining relationships has been a struggle for me romantically in the past for a similar reason, as I don't have a discerned goal anymore. It's just sort of hanging out. So I don't know how I'll work with that going forward, but while his goal is to always deepen relationships, he is never sure he has accomplished this. Without clear and defined goals to conversation, he cannot keep up, but if the topic is about what he likes, he will talk without relent. That is a quote from me. You've heard me talk about swords and stuff. I tone it down for entertainment purposes, but if you meet me in real life and ask me about my favorite swords, the great sword, Zweihände more like it, I will drown you in knowledge. Hot and fresh. His emotional responses are determined by others' emotional responses. He fears of getting it wrong and being mocked. He noted the ambiguity of social interactions along with fearing embarrassment as the primary cause of social anxiety. I'm really just making it up as I go along when I'm talking to people. And that's why phone calls are so tough, because I can't overanalyze their faces to try and see what they're getting at. It's just, I have no idea what I'm doing. He finds relating to others on an emotional level difficult and doubts that he has the capacity for empathy. So that relates to one of the multiple choice questionnaires that I took home for an empathy quotient. And it's very common in autistic people. One of the reasons that people struggle with social interaction is that oftentimes there's a marked deficit in empathy. Now, I'm going to do a video on the difference between empathy and sympathy, but short form is sympathy is acknowledging someone's feelings on an intellectual level. Empathy is being able to feel another person's emotions on their behalf. So I'm able to recognize that someone is upset and might benefit from comfort. And personally, my conviction is that I then have the moral obligation to go and offer that comfort and try to help them. Whereas with empathy, I imagine, because I don't know, empathy would be more about seeing someone sad makes you feel sad, so you go and let them know that you're sharing in their experience so that they feel less alone. Suppose that'd be what it is. I just burped a little acid in my mouth there. Empathy is often shorthand for evil in the world, which I think is a pretty significant misnomer. You're still a good person if you can't feel other people's emotions. It's not about what you feel internally. It's about the actions that you take and how they benefit the others around you. He can be sympathetic but not empathetic. He's also unable to make logical inferences or understand sarcasm. As far as sarcasm, it's a matter of understanding certain cues that people have. For instance, one of the friends that I made working at the church, our main source of joking together is like insult comedy, just sort of ribbing, being, couple of lads together. And I'm always totally fine and feel safe with it because he has a very specific tell in the way that he breathes after he makes a sarcastic comment. He's like, you suck. That kind of sip in, he does it after every sarcastic comment he makes. So I always know that he's not being serious. And he always like smiles while he's saying it and afterwards, which is usually indicative of not meaning malintent. So there are certain things that I can look for to ascertain someone's intentions with what they're saying. And the logical inferences thing, I don't know if that's also autism. I could just be a bit daft as well. When I first failed my road test, I apparently cut somebody off. I disagree. But once we were done, he was going down the list of all the things that I got wrong. And then he finished it off by saying, and you cut someone off, which if you ever interfere with traffic is an automatic fail instantly. And I was sitting there listening and I was waiting to hear if I had passed or failed. I'm not stupid. I just couldn't really draw the conclusion because he wasn't being extremely exact with it. If I were to offer some kind of dramatization of what happened, you're stupid. You did everything you could to fail this test. You hit a child and laughed. I mean, that's a thing that is worthy of a fail and prison time, So, I mean, shoot, dude, there's nothing you did that could have passed you here. Everything you did is stuff that leads to automatic failures. So what I'm saying is you failed. Oh, I need people to be direct when they are speaking to me. Elseways, there's no guarantees that I'll retain any of what's being said. Regarding verbal and nonverbal communication behaviors, Kieran has difficulty following conversations as well as what others are saying. He's notorious for always laughing, regardless of whether it is appropriate. You'll find in social interactions, most people are just trying to make you laugh because it's an easy way to seem pleasant. So generally, laughing at what someone says is the right response. I have learned over time that there are situations in which it is the exact wrong response. Sometimes people say deathly serious things and I'm like, yeah. And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. He spends a great amount of emotional energy reading others' emotions and nonverbal cues. He's always questioning whether he has misread cues. He tries to match his facial expressions to those around him. When he's exhausted, people think he's angry or sad when his face is just relaxed. RBFS, my boy. He uses hand signals as greetings and becomes confused when he receives them in return. That's because this is kind of my shorthand for acknowledging your existence, but then when other people do it back, it's like, I acknowledged your existence, so it's implied that you're acknowledging mine. So when they do it back, I don't know what to make of it. He does not enjoy making eye contact and only does so as a sign of respect and also for ensuring communication is happening. That's a relatively new thing. I was playing around with eye contact and it's so nice to not make it. The only concern that I have when I'm not making it is like, am I being disrespectful to this person? Do they think that I don't care? And I guess that's kind of social anxiety creeping in. He noted that he has had his most open and vulnerable conversations when in cars because there's no pressure to make eye contact. His vocal inflections are copied from television and media, and I've integrated and manipulated them such that they are now sort of my own, but they are very much based in things that I've seen and heard. And some of them you can actually still hear. I can't think of any examples right off the top of my head, but a lot of the inflections and ways that I speak in certain situations are modulated copies of TV and movies and other YouTubers and stuff like that, which I think to an extent is normal, but it's not to the extent of learning how to talk, period. It's to the extent of trying to take the context of a show out into the real world. Like in sitcoms, when people make rude jokes and the audience laughs, even though everyone on screen's offended, I would make those rude remarks to family members and get punished. And I was really confused why it didn't work like it did on TV. And that happened way later in life than it should have. His most natural way of speaking is using formal dictation, which is intentional. I do that most on Mental Health Mondays. I don't do it too much on YouTube just because it's not very entertaining and funny. And I'm fine to not use that baseline way of speaking for me, because I would rather be funny. His preferred form of social engagement is simply sitting in the company of others without the need to communicate. That is something that I realized while I was working at the church. They were assigning graduation cards for the students, and I wasn't signing anything because my printing is just the worst, so it's best I never touch a pen. And I was just sat there with all my friends around me, and I was just so content to just sit there silently and just be around them. To me, that had the same level of social relief as actually talking and joking with everyone would. And in some ways even better, because it was more relaxing and it didn't take anything out of me to try and be social and pleasant and engaging. It was interesting. It was very interesting. Regarding restricted, repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities, Kieran noted a preference for routine, and he is easily distressed when sudden changes in the same. I don't like surprises. If someone moves or touches his belongings, he can get incredibly angry. Truth, don't be touching my giblets. He usually turns his anger inward, and the world around him might not know his true feelings. I mask like a mow trucker. You'll never know the rage behind these eyes. He tried to be amicable with classmates by sometimes sharing his belongings, but was serious about having them returned, quote, post haste. He reported experiencing the same thing with lending money. If he lends anyone money, he expects to receive the money back to the exact penny. That's true. I have a list in my head of people from high school who still owe me money. One kid still owes me $2. One girl owes me 10 cents. And I remember one girl from elementary still owes me back a green crayon. I take very extensive inventory of what's mine, and if I'm just gifting it away, don't even worry about it, man. It's all good. But if I'm giving something to someone with the intention of receiving it or something of equal value in return, you'll never get out of that debt to me. If I owe someone money and I round down by a penny, I consider myself to be shortchanging them. And equally, if I am giving someone money and I round up by a penny, I consider it charity in myself, which is kind of psychotic. I acknowledge that, but it's just how my brain works. I'm very serious about what is mine, and I would like to receive what is mine in post haste. Kieran has rules about how he splits costs with others. He also has specific rules for his clothing and how they are hung in his closet. If the shirt openings are not facing left with the hook going over, I will riot. If he discovers his clothes are not hung in this specific manner, he will take all the clothes out and reapply them properly to the hangers. He has a few specific outfits he tries to frequent. He noted that his days have scheduled routines. He also has a pattern of fixed interests. As a child, he was obsessed with dinosaurs. Currently, medieval history is his current obsession. In fact, he bought himself armor from a specialty store. Procuring obscure facts has also been a consistent interest in him throughout his life. Show the jack chain. Boom. Sorry, ladies, I'm single. You should date me. How many men you know got the confidence to rock 15th century plate? That's what I thought. Kieran describes several self-stimulatory behaviors. He snaps and moves his neck to release what he perceives as an air bubble. He also uses the motion as a subtle substitute for the swatting motion to remove unpleasant, intrusive thoughts. Sometimes I'll go like that. I think it looks like Tourette's, honestly, or it looks like someone faking Tourette's, because I'll do like a lot of that kind of stuff. That's not an impulse thing. I just had an intrusive thought that I don't like the feeling of, and I want it out. So consciously what I'll do is I'll go like this and like sort of hold the image in front of me, because my intrusive thoughts are usually visual, swat it out until I come into an image that I do like, and I hold that in, and then we're all hunky-dory. Usually it's an image of Squirtle. But then sometimes I'll just reflexively like, no, oh, you thought. There was one day where I got a pretty serious headache because I was just getting so rattled with intrusive thoughts that I was just like, wah, wah, wah. I was just batting my brain around in my skull. Tough day. He cannot sit still and is markedly fidgety. He prefers to lean forward in his seat and have his knees bouncing because it makes him feel calm and regulated. If you have a bouncing leg, I'm not a doctor, but that is pretty common with us neurodivergent tips. You can't see it, but I have my legs crossed like a monk right now. I have one leg up over the other, not like intertwined, but like layered. And this is the only way, because I can't bounce my knees too much when I'm recording because it'll shake the desk and the camera and the mic stand and everything. So I'll have my legs crossed and then have my feet hooked around the armrests, and that stretching sort of helps me maintain it, but I still I'm doing it right now, slapping one of my meaty thighs up and down, because it just helps me feel so much better. If he has to sit still, he would concentrate on that rather than his environment. He holds his wrist and digs into his thumb. I hold my wrist and I dig into my thumb. He also likes to have his limbs close to his body. He rolls his wrists and arms. Do you get squeamish about bones popping? He feels as though the left side of his body is lighter than his right and has noticed several compensatory behaviors he engages in as a result. I chew on the left side of my mouth generally. I try to only use my left pocket. And if I have to use both, I put all the heavy stuff in my left pocket. And if I'm ever stepping like over a seam in the sidewalk or a line or anything, I'll step left foot forward because then the weight kind of goes over to the left. I don't know why, but I just have this perception that my left half, vertically, my left half of the body is just heavier than the other one. And whenever I design characters or something, if they have like a classic cutout eye, it's on the left side. If they have a bionic arm, it's on the left side. Just anything different that I perceive as adding weight to that side of the body, it's always going to be on the left. Anything else and I will scream. He also has a specific arm loop practice he needs to perform when walking up downstairs that have a banister. Let's say this is the banister and this is my arm while I'm walking over. I have to create a little bubble. Just create a bubble. Just close it off. I don't know why, but if I don't, I throw up. Not actually, but I'm close. Initiating walking with his left foot is also something he consciously does. On the autism spectrum quotient, a self-report inventory, Kieran's scores indicate significant autistic traits. On the Rivo Autism and Asperger's diagnostic scale, along with the autism spectrum screening questionnaire, his scores were also indicative of autism. The systemizing quotient measured Kieran's drive to analyze and understand the underlying rules that govern behavior to make sense of the world. Systemizing is a way of explaining narrow interests, repetitive behaviors, and resistance to change common in autism. Interestingly, Kieran was found to have low systematizing on this screen. And that was interesting because like it was talking about like, you see a train and you want to understand how does coal there make the thing go chugga chugga chugga. And the thing is it was a very short questionnaire. I think there were only like 6 questions on it. And it was just examples of, do you experience systematizing in this? And I assume those questions were just the most common forms of systematizing in the way that it manifests in autistic people. But the examples that it gave specifically, I wasn't interested in. Though I can understand the idea of systematizing. I feel like I do have some interest in those, but it wasn't any of the questions that I was being asked there. So I answered no to all of them. I don't know. I often don't question how things work or why they work too much, so long as they do work. And if they stop working, then I double back and figure it all out. On the empathy quotient, Kieran's scores indicated that he lacks empathy at a level common in those with autism. Below average empathy is a simple way of explaining the social and communication difficulties in autism. It's not that I don't have empathy. It's that I have a deficit. It is possible for me to feel things on behalf of others, but it's not my natural state of being. I cannot count on empathy to inspire me to do certain things. It has to be a conscious decision on my own part as to what I do and why I do it. And that's that. That was cumulatively a page and a half of information, and there's 11 pages here. It was a diagnostics process. Now, I know this video is running long, and I don't want to keep you too much longer because I'm so appreciative of you being here as it is. If you are curious about where you may stand on the spectrum, if you want to, or even just any other kind of disorder or disability, if you're interested to know if you have them, would I recommend going through a psychological assessment to confirm or deny? Personally, I would say yes. For me, being able to, because labels can be damaging for some people and in certain cases. For me personally, labels are super helpful in being able to categorize things in my brain and the reasons why I am the way I am. It's really helpful for me and it helps lower my stress. And also with having an actual assessment done for autism, now I can show it to employers and be like, hey, I'm not a wuss. I have disabilities, but it's up to you. It can be a lot as a process, both in terms of time constraints and financially. For the sake of transparency, I'm going to be open about the costs of this because it's not a cheap assessment. I took this as a luxury because I really, really wanted to know. It was about $2,000, a little more than that. probably. And thankfully my mother was willing to go half and half with it. It's not cheap, you know? Talk is cheap, but not in a psychologist's office. For me, it's worth it because this has cleared up so many concerns that I've had. And it's, I think, overall a great benefit to my life. And I think this helps give me some guide rails and a better roadmap for going forward, and understanding, like, you know, employment until I get YouTube going, how I'm going to make it work. For me, I think it's well worth the cost. And it was, 6 hours of talking, which was very tiring and emotionally exhausting for sure. But I think it led to a more accurate report, which is good. If I had gone through all this and didn't get diagnosed with autism, I would have been extremely mad. Not because like I wanted to be proven right, you know, because a lot of people, high functioning autism flies under the radar pretty good. A lot of people didn't really think that I had autism or didn't really believe that I did, but I was pretty certain. It wasn't about that. It wasn't that I wanted to be proven right in it. It was just that if it was autism, then I would be able to wrap up a lot of concerns that I've had for myself in a neat little box, and it would be easier to go forward. And now I know that these challenges that have felt insurmountable, they are. It's not that I'm failing to reach my potential. It's that my potential lies elsewhere. To me, it's vindicating. To me, it's well worth it. And I would recommend it if you have the ability to go and receive some kind of assessment. Even if it doesn't come out as what you had thought was going on, it can still tell you what is actually going on, so then you can address that in a better way. I think it's worth it. I think it's well worth it. If you have any questions about the TISM, then I'd be happy to try and answer them to the best of my abilities. No promises I can get anything coherent out, but, you know, we can go for it. If you have any questions for me about this, I'm totally open to answering them. I want to have a very open and vulnerable dialogue about this, because I think that's the reason that I have this little series, is that I think mental health is important to talk about. And I think it would be a great disservice to have all this experience that I have and not share it. I think that would be a great disservice to you. So any questions you got for me, let me know. I genuinely am fully willing to answer whatever you got. Until I'm not. You know, you don't need to know how many feet long my dingalingus is. You gotta marry me first. But as far as anything going on betwixt these ears, I'm more than happy to elaborate. So let me know what you got. So yeah, I'm going to be going into greater detail, I think, in the future about autism and my experiences with it as I grow and understand it. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, leave a like, leave questions in the comments. And if you like what I do here and you want to help me make people happy every day, then please subscribe to the channel. But of course, as always, I love you. And I hope you have a wonderful day.